Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, if you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below this video. Now, I'm going to start this particular debate by expressing the significance and importance of what's going to be done here today. So in a moment we're going to hear from a couple of guests, Anthony, Riley and Shane, otherwise known as Ranty, to talk about the importance of an event that has happened over the course of the last couple of days, but relates back to an incident that took place back in December of 2017. Now, initially, if this was explained to anybody at face value, it would seem to be the case that it's not of a massive deal of great significance. It's just a single lie about somebody seeming stupid and requiring help. So that would be Alex Geostriber, who is seemingly, rather than actually cope with a hangout one-to-one with Anthony, he has basically lied because he's had someone else giving him assistance, which at face value may just seem embarrassing for Geostriber because he has required some help where it would seem that he had the at least intelligence and capacity to deal with somebody one-on-one. He hasn't. The main problem isn't actually that, which is in itself a blatant lie which has been exposed. The problem actually comes in the aftermath, where we have three co-conspirators. That would be... Sorry, I'm going to move my munchkin. So three co-conspirators. One would be Soundly, one would be Sean Hufford, and the other would be Geostriber himself. You have to excuse my kid climbing all over me. She can obviously sense the importance of what I'm saying and wants to be involved. So my apologies to the audience. So in essence, Sean Hufford, I'm sure he'll get addressed by Anthony in a moment when I introduce him, but Sean Hufford in essence can be dispensed with pretty much immediately, as he's not part of the initial lie, but is definitely conspiring to actually conceal the lie. But his input isn't actually that relevant, so Anthony may not even deal with Sean. But certainly the two originally involved back in December, that would be Soundly and Geostriber, are probably going to end up being, I'm speaking for you, Anthony, I will introduce you in a minute, the main focus of this particular discussion. But yes, the reason for me doing this in summary is to highlight to the audience the importance of what is actually being done. We have a situation where we have three people who are conspiring to lie and deceive not only the audience, but also convince their audience that it is in fact the people they are discussing who are guilty of their own crimes. Crimes being a probably slightly too strong word, but nevertheless, I'm sure this will be quantified and my stress in terms of the severity of what they've done will become apparently clear. So with that, I'm going to first and foremost hand over to Anthony and Shane so they can introduce themselves. So say a quick hello, both of you two.
Yo, yo.
Yo, yo.
Yo-yo. Okay. So, yes, Anthony. Is there anything you want to correct first and foremost? Because obviously you've done the majority of the work on this. I've tried to give a decent summary with my kid clambering all over me. So if there's anything you need to correct in my summary, first of all, can you do that?
No. The background is the key. Stemmed.
Can I just get this in before you go any further? Just one thing I need to say, because I know that there's going to be a lot of things said in chat about Greater Sapien. I just want to get this out, that there will be a response video from me today. So I'm not going to be answering anything in the side chat. So that's all I wanted to say. So that's got that out of the way.
Fair enough. So Ranty's just putting that Greater Sapien thing to one side so it's not interrupted and we can keep focus on this particular aspect. So again, Over to you, Anthony. I'm going to put myself on mute.
This stemmed from Jimmy the other day. Jimmy was cornered with a point, and the point in question was the assumption that Venus was the same size as Earth for the purposes of calculating the distance to the sun. Jimmy wouldn't back down on that point, and basically he was being a little worm. But what the consequence of that assumption is that it goes back to the angular size point, because for them to get any of the celestial bodies, you must know either the distance to any of them or the actual size to one of them. So basically you've got to know one or the other. Now, there was this back and forth over, I got a lot of hate for the angular size is a sum, angle size is a measurement statement, to which I still stand by. Anybody that argues against that doesn't understand what angular size is. But anyway, I digress. I went back over a hangout with GeoStreamer from December of last year, in which this exact point was addressed in detail with GeoStreamer. It was supposed to be one-on-one, and that was the main reason why I was prepared to deal with GeoStreamer, because that was my understanding. That was where I expected it to go. It was supposed to be one-on-one. But when I went back and played the hangout, I heard background noise that I felt should not be there if it was a one-on-one conversation. So I listened carefully to what it was, deemed that it was worthy of more investigation, and I ran it through some filters on my software program, which I should be presenting to the audience now on screen, and deduced that there was...
Give me a second.
So I'll just assume that he's going to bring it up in the next couple of seconds whilst I'm on it, so there's not dead air. But I worked out that there was some conversation. GeoStreamer was being fed by someone. Now, there was enough in it for me to analyse it myself. And all I did, and I'll show what I did in a sec, all I did was I applied a couple of filters to it to see what was going to come out of the other side. And the issue that I was looking for was he being fed? Or was it a background noise that may or may not have been important? Because there are background noises. You'll hear the phone will ring, the dog will bark. It could just be that somebody was having a conversation in the background. Plausible deniability could be an issue. But I felt when I'd done my analysis of what I heard, I was satisfied that GeoStreamer was in fact being fed by somebody. And on face value, to me, it sounded like Sean. Didn't matter whether it was Sean or not. What mattered was that he was being fed by somebody, because it was supposed to be a one-on-one hangout, and it clearly was not a one-on-one hangout. So I will come back to the points that are being made in the video in question after I've addressed the hangout from Sean last night. I got told of the hangout late last night, but I was going to bed and I couldn't be bothered watching it late last night because I was tired anyway. So I watched it first thing this morning. So a few hours ago I watched it. And on screen right now, you can see my screen. This bit highlighted in blue is the whole of the hangout. It does go off the screen to the right, but the gist of it is can be dispensed with. And in the hangout, I've picked out some of the key phrases that are being discussed. Ranty, stick yourself on mute, dude.
Yeah, I'm just going to put myself on mute.
So basically, I'm going to pick out some of the key sentences so that you guys can hear what they're actually saying at the time, because these are important statements. And what I've done is I've got the timeline along the bottom, and you can see all the segments that I'm interested in are essentially bookmarks. I've just pulled them out of the timelines, and then it saves you guys going to his channel, listening for it, which you're not going to be that interested in doing. I get it. I wasn't that interested in doing it. I know what was being said. But these are the key sentences that are said in the hangout that I want to highlight. And I want you to listen to them as a collection from from the beginning to the end, and piece them all together yourself. So I'll play the first clip.
I got that video that Geo linked to me, I guess, of Riley trying to call Geo a liar or whatever and amplifying the sound. I honestly couldn't even recognize the voice.
So Soundly's been brought into the hangout, and he admits that he couldn't recognize the voice initially. And that's fair, because it's very quiet and it's in the background, and I wouldn't expect him to be able to say yay or nay to anything at that point. So the next clip.
It's clearly you.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
We just have to figure out which video it's from.
So Sean's position at this point is that it's clearly Soundly. Now, I don't really care whether it's Soundly or not, but what I care about is, was he being fed? But Sean's position is he's self-deduced that he's got to work out what video is it from. Now, my position is it's not from a video, but good luck for that, Sean. If you think you can work out what video it's from, good luck on that one. So the next clip is this.
Yeah, he said something like, yeah, go back to the definition he cites or something.
So GeoStreamer agrees with me that the words that I heard in the video are, as he's just cited, yeah, go back to the definition he cites or something. That's accurate. So Geo's on the same page as me at this point. The next clip is this one.
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too. Sean, you can bang.
Let's do a noise reduction. Let's get a noise reduction.
Actually, hearing it just now, it does sound more like me.
It is you. I have no doubts about that.
So basically what Sean's trying to do here is play around with the sound in the same way that I did to work out what's being said. Now, Soundly now admits that it is him, right? But again, my position is I don't care whether it's Soundly or Sean. What I care about is why is he there in the first place? Because nobody should be there. It's supposed to be a one-to-one, okay? So Soundly now admits that it is him.
It does sound like I'm responding to the current hangout, though. Go back to the definition that you just cited.
So now he's admitting that it does sound like he's responding to the actual hangout. And I agree, that's exactly what's going on. He's basically telling us, and I've put it on screen as an aid memoir for my purposes, this is an embedded confession. It's the same kind of embedded confession that Madeleine McCann's parents kind of made in some of their comments that they've said in the press and stuff. If you've been keeping up to date with the Madeleine McCann thing, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, it'll go over your head. But he's actually telling his audience, he's telling Sean Hufford's audience that it does sound like he's responding to it, and he's doing it in such a way to make it sound like it's, you know, there's a little bit of weight there. But my position is he's admitting that's exactly what's going on.
It does sound like I'm responding to the current hangout, though.
That's because you are. That's exactly what's going on. So my next comment is, at this point, the suggestion that Sean is putting to them is that, or rather putting to GeoStreamer, is that GeoStreamer is playing a hangout in the background of some kind, and that's the background noise. So listen for Geo's reaction in his voice when it's suggested that he's playing a hangout.
That's one of your hangouts. Go back to that definition you just cited.
Yeah, go back to that definition you cited too. Sean, you can make
small angle formula.
And I say Sean.
So sadly, you think that I was watching one of Sean's hangouts while talking to Riley?
Now that expression in his voice there is because it's ridiculous to suggest that GeoStreamer would be listening to a hangout of anybody's whilst having a one-to-one with me. That's because it is ridiculous that either of us would be listening to a hangout. But that tone in GeoStreamer's voice at this point, I will be relying on in my conclusion of this evidence later on. So remember the way he describes this.
So sadly, you think that I was watching one of Sean's hangouts while talking to Riley?
Same applies. I wouldn't be having any hangouts being played whilst having a one-to-one either. The notion of that being suggested is ridiculous. And anybody that suggests that that's what the explanation is must be a moron, because when you have a one-on-one with someone, you are focusing on every word that drips out of their mouth. So to have something being played in the background by either of us is ridiculous. Now, Sean prides himself on being a, quote, sound guy, and this is one of the snips from what Sean now responds to, because he thinks he's getting close to the target.
Yeah, you were watching one of my hangouts that Soundly was a part of. And we had to go back to a definition because he wanted to make sure that it was correct.
So at this point, Sean thinks that Geo's watching one of Sean's hangouts, right? That's what he thinks. Geo's already laughed at that idea because it's ridiculous. But that's what Sean's thinking at this point. Then he changes his mind, I believe, and this is the next clip.
Freaking impressive, Sean.
Well, audio's my bitch.
So Sean self-professes to be a fantastic audio guru guy. Now, this is where it comes to the crescendo of Sean's perception, and indeed the perception from everybody in the hangout at the end of the hangout with Sean. This is based on the next two comments.
Anthony is the one playing my hangout while he's talking to Geo. What a fucking twit. Audio guy. Gotta love me.
So he now deduces, based on his own prowess in audio skills, that I am listening to his hangout whilst having a conversation with GeoStreamer. Well, if that was the case, that would be prevalent in all of the clips that were being played, and it only appears in the odd one or two. I've had a look. It isn't there. I can hear more evidence of somebody feeding GeoStreamer, but his position right now is that I am listening to Sean Hufford's hangout whilst playing a one-to-one with Geo. Bear in mind Geo's reaction when it was questioned whether he was doing the same. He had this high-pitched ridiculousness, which is credible because that is exactly what would happen. It would be ridiculous.
You go back to that again.
The meaning of the word angular size is.
Yes, and I already corrected you on.
So yes, Anthony, you were playing my hangout and are now blaming Geo for being coached. Never ask an audio guy to find out the truth about audio.
Well, never ask an evidence guy to find out the truth about evidence, because let's go back to the reaction from GeoStreamer when it was suggested that he was looking at something of Sean's whilst having a hangout with me.
So, sadly, you think that I was watching one of Sean's hangouts while talking to Riley?
Now, that high-pitched disbelief in his voice is genuine, because it's obviously the same from me. Why on earth would either of us be having a hangout on in the background if we were having a one-to-one? Of course, the answer will be that we wouldn't. Neither of us would have Sean's hangout on at all for any reason whilst having a one-to-one, or at least what was perceived to be a one-to-one. So I'm going to use GeoStreamer's reaction here to support my position, which is exactly the same. It's ridiculous. What they're actually doing is trying to muddy waters that are really, really clear, straightforward, and they're trying to create plausible deniability for their friend GeoStreamer, who's been called out twice in a week. Let's remember that last week GeoStreamer was called out by Nathan for quoting, asking Jeremy for addresses. Nathan immediately responded and said, "No, that's an outright lie. Why would you be saying that?" Well, 2 times in 1 week, GeoStreamer's been challenged as being a liar. So let's reconsider the evidence that I was challenged or questioning in the first place. This is the segment in the clip in question from the Hangout. In this Hangout, there are 2 pieces of evidence to consider. And I'm going to show you what filters were applied. Sean made a big deal about the high pass filter being the wrong phrase. Well, the only reason why I said high pass is because it was identified as high pass on the system. So it doesn't matter whether it's high pass or low pass. It's a moot point. It's irrelevant. I applied a filter at 2000 megahertz to get rid of the background noise, the white noise, the hissing noise, which anybody that amplifies music will understand is there. I also changed the gain to 400%. That was to make it 4 times louder so that people could hear it. Okay? That's all I did. Didn't do anything else. They were the only filters that I applied. High pass, amplify, that was it. And they're the only 2 I need. I don't need any more than that. I don't need anything. I don't need to remove anything from it. I just need to filter out the high pass stuff. And technically speaking, he is right. It is technically a low pass, but obviously it's been described on the software as high pass, and that's why I said high pass. It's irrelevant anyway, but he made a big deal about that. So it's another element to try and distract and discredit me, but there's the reason why it was said. Now, what is actually said in this clip, and you can hear it yourself, hopefully. It says, go back to the definition that he cited before.
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too. Sean, you
small angle formula.
So he says, go back to that
small angle formula.
He says, go back to that definition he cites too. Well, what's more plausible? Is it that I'm playing a hangout of Sean Hufford's in the background whilst having a one-to-one discussion, given that you've just heard GeoStreamer's reaction when the same was put to him? Or is it possible that when he says go back to the definition that he cites before, I might actually be referring to a previous point in the Hangout, probably a minute or so before, where I'm actually discussing a definition?
I'm sorry, but I know that's rhetorical, but it is absolutely contemporaneous with the conversation that is currently taking place. It comes after a stumble from Geo, where he's clearly struggling to find an answer. Then there's a pause. Then there is a contemporaneous response from a third party, who we now know is Soundly. Then Geo moves to a different definition. So it is absolutely contemporaneous. There is no question that he is being fed what to do by Soundly.
Now, the reason why this is important is because if it is the case that Sean Hufford is being played in my background or GeoStreamer's background, then yeah, that's like possible, right? But is it probable? And the answer, of course, is no. GeoStreamer and I both dismiss that with ridicule because it is ridiculous. But is it more likely that the citation where he's saying go back to the definition that he cites, is it more likely that there is actually something that was said just before that might involve a definition? And as you can see, less than 30 seconds earlier, there is a conversation here that is talking about the definition of angular size. And my position is that this is the definition. Well, not this bit here. My position is that the definition of angular size is this one, which reads, the angular size of an object is determined by its actual size and its distance from the observer. And it's the second part that's important because it requires the distance, okay? But what they want to do is they want to remove that from the definition and use this one instead, which states Angular size is measured in arc minutes and arc seconds. So the issue is to do with which definition are we going for. And this is what he's referring to when he says, yeah, go back to that definition. He's referring to this clip. So let's play this clip and you can hear what was said. All right. So what you're saying is that this sentence here, by your interpretation, contradicts this sentence there.
No, it doesn't contradict it. It widens is the wrong word. It's basically the same thing, just backwards.
So this is what we're referring to because we've just had a conversation about angular size and its definition. So when we go back to this bit here, let's hear it again.
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too.
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too, which would be this bit here. All right. So what you're saying is that this sentence here, by your interpretation, contradicts this sentence there.
No, it doesn't.
And that's basically it, because they want one definition, I want the other definition, and that's clearly what he's referring to, and he is feeding GeoStreamer.
I just want to reiterate that again. Sorry to interrupt, Anthony. So in a minute, I want you to play that full section, including the interruption from the third party soundly, because what you have is GeoStreamer going, and not being able to find the words. Then he gets help. Then there's a pause, and he gets help. So it's not unclear what's going on here. It's absolutely apparent. But if you can now play the full unedited clip where Geo says, because he's clearly struggling to find a response, then he gets fed information specifically about the topic that's being discussed.
Wait, let me check it. Where was it? Further down, right?
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too. Sean, you can make
He's even responding to a question. He's literally saying, where is it? And then he gets the answer from Soundly when he pauses.
Where was it? Further down, right?
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too. Sean, you can make
Small angle formula.
Gets his answer, then continues talking.
Now that is proof of contemporaneousness, right? Now, if it's the allegation against me is that I was playing Sean's Hangout in the background. GeoStreamer is directly communicating to and from this person, which we now know to be Soundly. So, which is the one that's true? Is it the reference that I'm citing, which is from a few minutes, like 30 seconds earlier, where I am giving a definition, and he's asking Geo to go back to that definition because he wants to have the argument over which definition? Or is it more reasonable to think that Sean Hufford's conversation or Hangouts being played in the background, and it's my background that's being picked up? Why would anybody have even GeoStreamer admits it himself. Why would anybody play that? So I'll just play GeoStreamer's last reaction for you all to consider, and then we can basically wrap this one up because this is pretty much done. Well, it's not that one, it's further work. So this is GeoStreamer's reaction when it was challenged against him. And I echo the same sentimentality. It's ridiculous.
I think that I was watching one of Sean's Hangouts while talking to Riley.
So I'll have that same reaction. If the assertion is that I was playing Sean Hufford's Hangout, I will cite GeoStreamer's reaction as my answer. Or is it simply the case that they wanted to go back to the discussion that was being discussed at the time because Soundly thought that there was more in it that was worthy of discussion, and Geo didn't dwell on the point enough? You can clearly hear what's being said. I'll just play it one more time.
Wait, let me check it. Where was it? Further down, right?
Yeah, go back to that definition he cites too. Sean, you can make
Small angle formula. What?
You can't differentiate size.
Small angle.
So Geo's clearly communicating back and forth with this person in the background. It's contemporaneous. It's direct one-to-one instruction to and from. It's got nothing to do with me. It's all down to GeoStreamer. Now, this in itself is an incriminable offence, right? This is a crime. This is like dishonest, right? But that now is not the big issue. The bigger issue is that Sean Hufford, GeoStreamer himself, and Soundly have all coerced together to try and muddy waters in a desperate attempt to try and make it look a little bit murky. But the reality is the evidence speaks for itself. I was not playing anything to do with Sean. He was communicating directly with what I first thought was Sean, but turns out to be Soundly. But the point is, no person should be in the conversation. Now I'll cite my final two pieces of evidence, which will be a comment from Twitwit, who states, that isn't Sean, as though that's the key point. And my response is, it doesn't matter. He shouldn't be there, whoever it is. And I echo those same words now. Whatever was going on with Sean or Soundly, shouldn't have even been there. And the final thing is, that's where you will find the comments from the video of Sean Hufford. You'll note that there's 75 thumbs up, but there's 24 thumbs down. And I only got to that this morning. So it's not even mine. Nathan, you've not seen it, is that right?
No, I've not seen that video.
So none of these people are me or Nathan, and I don't think Ranty's seen it either. But the three of them have coerced together to try and muddy waters on what is straightforward straightforward communication that was contemporaneous at the time, and it was one-to-one communications with Soundly. Now, it's supposed to be a one-on-one hangout with me and Gio, and he's getting coached. So it's not the fact so much he is getting coached, and it was supposed to be one-on-one. That's kind of like, yeah, you're a cheat. But what's bigger is that Gio Streber's buddied up with Sean Hufford and Soundly to try and create muddied waters and discredit me at all costs. And I'll just play Sean's final words, and then I'm done. You can listen to what his final words were, which will be here.
You go back to that again.
The meaning of the word angular is.
Yes, and I already corrected you on.
So yes, Anthony, you were playing my hangout and are now blaming Gio for being coached. Never ask an audio guy to find out the truth about audio.
And I'll close by saying, never ask an evidence guy to find out the truth about what was going on.
Have you got anything to add, Ranty? Because I'm going to do a quick summary if you haven't. If you have, now's your chance.
It would be a response to the chat, so not really.
No, okay, fair enough. In that case, I'm just going to round out and basically reiterate exactly what Anthony's just said, which is the initial, you could call it a misdemeanor, i.e. Alex being too stupid to actually cope with a one-on-one hangout with Anthony and requiring Soundly in the background to actually feed him information. While that is humiliating for Gio Streber and a clear demonstration of his own stupidity, it wouldn't in and of itself be damning. What is damning is, as Anthony's just pointed out and I summarised at the beginning, the basically conspiracy. The three of them getting together and conspiring to cover up this overt lie. The lie that Gio Streber was not being fed, because that looks terrible if it were to be conceded, which they'll never do. They will, of course, pile more lies on top of lies in lieu of this information. But I hope that 90% of the audience, the ones that aren't completely stupid, can recognise exactly what they've been demonstrated here, which is that Gio Streber absolutely unequivocally was being fed information by Soundly. Soundly, in yesterday's hangout on Gio Streber's show, gave an embedded confession to exactly what he was doing, which is to say he was feeding Soundly with information during that show with Anthony. And furthermore, the most damning part, as I say, they have all conspired to cover this up together. That is absolutely disgusting, abhorrent behaviour, and it's not the first example. In the last couple of weeks, we've had example after example of people, including Gio Streber, the most recent one, actually lying through their back teeth. In that instance with Gio Streber about me, he was caught out in his lie and failed to concede it. And now we have not only a failure to concede that Gio Streber is indeed stupid and requires help from Soundly, he's tried to cover it up. And Soundly has supported him in this. Sean, we all know he's a disingenuous liar. He can't ever say anything. He can't ever repeat verbatim anything that anybody has ever said ever. So Sean, like I said at the beginning, isn't really that big a deal for me. Anthony may feel differently. But for me, he's just another co-conspirator with Gio Streber and Soundly in an attempt to cover up their blatant deceit. And their deceit is in regards to their tightly oiled machine where they assist each other in trying to get arguments. And at the point, this is the misdemeanor which becomes a lot greater, at the point where Gio Streber's struggling to actually respond to one of Anthony's assertions, Soundly comes in with the answer when he pauses. This is not unclear. This is not a hangout that's been played by Anthony. And as Gio demonstrated when he went, "Really? You think I'm playing a hangout?" Sorry to not quote it verbatim, I'm not doing Sean, but to paraphrase, he is saying, that seems shocking that I would be playing a hangout whilst having a conversation with somebody, and it is. So the accusation, which was the conclusion, that Anthony is doing just that, is equally as preposterous. Ultimately speaking, none of their diversions are worth their salt. All that needs to be recognised here is that A, Geo Strieber has been fed by Soundly during what Anthony was led to believe was a one-to-one hangout, and in the aftermath, Geo Strieber has made absolutely clear was intended to be a one-to-one hangout. It was not. They have then gone on to conspire to cover it up. This is disgusting behaviour. This show will have a short break, and we will resume this Flat Earth debate at 2 PM UK time. Massive thank you to Anthony and Shane for taking part in this exposure of the deception and subsequent conspiracy to cover up lies by Geo Strieber and by Sean and by the biggest of all liars, Soundly. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!